Welcome back to the Passion with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Chansky. I am very excited because I have the man, Eric Hillestad, here with me today. And Eric has been somebody that I've been keeping in touch with through DMs, through the fact that he's been in my Business Blueprint coaching program. And I've never actually sat down with him for a full conversation like this in this way. And so I wanted to do this so that other people could hear, because Eric just has, from what I know, like the pieces that I know, Eric, you have a wild story. And so first off, before we get into that, introduce yourself a little bit, Eric. Tell us what you do, where you do it from, and a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like Nathan said, I'm Eric Hillestad. I'm a wedding photographer from Minnesota, like the Minneapolis area. And I've had a camera in my hand for 12 years, but I've been full-time for 3. If people finally forced me to make that jump.
It's amazing. So when what's the year you went full-time?
I believe it's 2022. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yep. And so when you were in that place where you really got into photography, what do you think like attracted you to photography a lot?
Yeah, so I was surrounded by amazing photographers. One of which was like a top-rated photographer.
Really?
Even my sister was a wedding photographer. Like it was just I was surrounded by it, and so cameras were something that I was super intrigued in. But initially, what initially like got me to get a camera was like star trail photography, like adventure photography, like long exposure stuff. And so like as a high school kid, just like wanting the next adventure, right? Like it was, and like Instagram was like just hitting, right? Like
that kind of content was hot on Instagram during that time.
Dude. And it was super fun. And so like always trying to think of the next idea. To create a cool photo. And so like that's what got me into it. And then later on I can share more depending on now or later. But
here my question is, you had talked to me a little bit about what happened in 2022. Because you said you went full time that year. Just tell us about the year 2022 for you. What did that year look like?
Okay.
Let's start from the beginning.
So right at the start of 2022, January, my brother suddenly passed away. And he was like, I don't know how many brothers, four brothers. He was the next one closest to me. He was my best friend, whatever. He was my mentor in so many things. Wow. And so that was like a really, I mean, obviously it's crushing, right? But like this one was like, it was tough. And I was in a job at the time that didn't allow me to grieve. That didn't give me time to grieve. And so I just had to grind at work. And I also had a newborn at the time. My daughter was born in December, the previous month. Wow. And so I was up to my neck in things on my plate, and
probably emotions just going crazy.
Emotions, and I had no time to process any of it, right? And changing diapers and doing my job, high responsibility job and whatever. And so it was really rough. And 3 days after he passed, I started to have symptoms where like I had insane pain in my shoulder, and then like the next day it would bounce to my knee, and then the next day it would bounce to a different part of my body. And I was like, what is going on? And then there would be like periods of time where it would kind of go away, maybe a little bit of pain, whatever. So I kind of shook it off. And then I'm trying to remember all the timeline because everything was so chaotic, but I think it was April. By that time I was bedridden. And so I was in so much pain, in my legs and other areas of my body, but my legs more specifically. And I like just to like go to the bathroom, TMI, but like just to walk to the bathroom, that was like my thing for the day, right? Wow. And I would go to the doctors. Like people are like, "Did you go to the doctor? Like, did they take care of you?" And they're and they said I just have arthritis. I'm like, I'm 25 years old. I do not have arthritis. Like, and so they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And then come May 1st, I woke up to a pretty graphic symptom that made me be like, yeah, I need to go into the hospital again.
Mm.
And they, so I went to the hospital, and next thing I knew, I was being thrown into a hazmat room,
Oh,
making sure that I didn't have tuberculosis. And while they were doing that, because there's blood involved, like
yeah.
so that's yeah. And so while they were trying to figure it out, and then the next thing I knew, it was 2 weeks later, and I was in a different hospital,
Wow.
hooked up to every machine possible, including ECMO, which is the most advanced form of life support.
Wow.
And whenever I run into nurses, talk to nurses, and they hear that I was on ECMO, and they're like, "You're alive?" Like,
Yeah, they're like, you are here.
yeah, like people survive ECMO, but it's not a common thing.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like a last resort. And what ECMO does is essentially like it operates your heart or your lungs uh, for you.
Wow.
So like when um, so long story short, my I found out in the hospital after I was under a medically induced coma and on paralytics and everything
Hmm.
for a good period of time. And then when I was finally conscious, they told me that I had developed an autoimmune condition called granulomatosis with polyangiitis. Another name for it is Wagner's, but Wagner's is Nazi, so they stopped calling it that.
Okay.
Um, and so, what it is the inflammation of the small blood vessels in my lungs, and so my lungs were bleeding internally, and so they were
Hmm.
filling up with blood to the point where there's not like an ounce of oxygen in my lungs.
Wow.
And so, if you talk, Nathan, you might appreciate this. Holistic doctors, when you go into the emotional roots of this whole thing,
Uh-huh.
grief is huge. And so, my,
Really?
my my sister would say, because I had no time to cry, my lungs did it for me. So like,
Wow.
because my lungs were bleeding, and so grief is very heavily tied to the lungs.
Wow.
And so yeah, it wasn't a surprise, but obviously devastating. And so yeah, I was given everything under the sun. I was given chemo, immunosuppressant infusions, fentanyl. Like, I was on ECMO, like literally anything you can name. They were throwing everything at me just to try to keep me alive.
Hmm.
And by the time my body actually got stable enough to be like, oh, okay, Eric is gonna make it out, doctors were saying like, there's no scientific explanation as to how I survived. And then word got out. Word got to some of the like top lung doctors in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. I have people close to me that like was trying to loop them in and saying like, what can we do here, type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then when they said like, prepare your family for the worst, like he's kind of done, type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then when they heard I got out, they said only God.
Hmm.
Like there's no other way to explain it.
Yeah.
And so that was a crazy experience. I didn't get to see my daughter for 5.5 weeks. She was 5 months old at the time,
Wow.
and so that was honestly probably the hardest part of the whole thing.
Hmm.
Being poked in pride and whatever, like that was definitely the hardest thing, not
Were
seeing my
you
daughter.
were you aware that this was all happening to you? Because I know you had even said like for those first 2 weeks you were like, I blinked and I was somewhere
I
else.
have no memory of those 2 weeks. My wife said like they would come and visit me and I would talk to them and whatever. I have no memory of that.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, and then it was so I not only survived though, I was supposed to be in the hospital for months.
Hmm.
And I got out June 7th.
Wow.
So I went in May 1st, got out June 7th, and people were just blown away. And here's what's crazy though. So like all these like uh, miracles happening, right?
Hmm.
And but it was accompanied by so my story spread like wildfire, and I have no idea how. It literally went all over the world. It wasn't in like news stories, but it was like from friend to friend to friend to friend, like all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And still to this day, I'm meeting people, like people coming to me and they're like, "Are you Eric?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And
Wow.
they're like, "I was praying for you." It's like, holy cow,
Wow.
thank you so much.
And you
And
had like I think you had videos go viral, didn't you?
yeah, yeah.
With your
So if anyone
story.
that's watching this, feel free to go on my Instagram. If you go under my Reels tab, I think it's pinned. That's one of the reels that you can see that kind of shares a little bit of my story.
Hmm.
But yeah, I had to, like, I was sedated for so long. I was in a bed for so long. So like, I also had a trach, so like a breathing tube and a feeding tube. So
Hmm.
I lost the ability to breathe, walk, talk, um, like so many functions.
Wow.
And so I had to relearn all of those things,
Yeah, I
and which
bet.
was very humbling. I was doing it with my daughter because she was learning how to sit up and stand
So
herself,
crazy.
right? And so that was a crazy experience. Very difficult to like relearn all those things. Like relearning how to breathe was
Hmm.
really tough. Getting taken off the ventilator for periods of time and just right. So, anyways, I'm always an open book about that story. If anyone wants to reach out and like ask more details, I'm happy to answer.
I'm just blown away because I'm like trying to understand. You said you went full time in your business in 2022.
Yeah, yeah,
How the heck did that happen? And how were you even remotely in a position to start up your business again?
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I finally got out of the hospital. I got enough strength. I certainly wasn't back to normal. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was using a walker. My sister's family took us in. Her house was really good for just rehabbing. Everything I needed was on one floor, type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so we were there through the end of the or through November. Um, and so I was getting my strength back. And by the time that it was like, okay, I have enough strength to work, but I just don't know what that is.
Hmm.
And so a full 8 hour workday or like I wasn't too sure and I was a bit anxious about it. I had
Yeah.
never experienced anxiety until this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
I never understood people with anxiety. Like it
Hmm.
was, so it gave me a lot of compassion for people that struggle with that. But
Mm-hmm.
and so come I don't know what month it was, but I was like, yep, I need to start working and like actually test myself in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm a photographer. I just never have gone full time,
Yeah.
and I know I can make money with it. And I know, I know my body's capable of going out with a family
Mm-hmm.
and taking photos for half
Yeah.
hour, whatever. And so, but I was like, wedding feels like it's still a little too much
Right.
right now.
Yeah.
And so I started taking photo clients and families, and it was going really well. Like I was getting a lot of clients, and I was like, oh, my body can do this.
Yeah.
And then that year ended, and then I had that off season, right, to continue to build up my strength and then
Mm-hmm.
also market myself. I was like, I need to take the leap and start taking weddings, right?
Yep.
Like and because at that point it was like my anxiety was telling me no, my body wasn't telling me no, right?
Interesting.
And
So you're
so
like, I just got to get back out there.
yeah, I just need to do it. And so so then I started taking weddings, and like thankfully I mean my story helped a little bit. I was in people's eye, right? Like I was on people's radar because of my story. And so there's definitely couples that came to me and they wanted me for their wedding.
Wow.
But at this point, like I had so unorganized. Like I didn't have like a structured business, right? But I was
Hmm.
like, I just want to do whatever I can to provide for my family. And like
Totally.
my biggest heart is for my wife to be able to stay home with the kiddos because that's what
Hmm.
she desires. And
Yeah.
so yeah, anyways, so I did that wedding season, and it was like it was so good. Like, and
Hmm.
it tested me a ton.
Right.
Like being able, like dealing with that anxiety of not only making sure, hoping that my body's okay for
Hmm.
to do the work day, but also being worried that I'm going to go back to the hospital.
Right.
Like, and I can't tell you how many times people said like, no, you're actually good. Like
Wow.
you're not going back. And
Wow.
thankfully the the condition that I have is it's very treatable. It's just it's misdiagnosed 5 times before you figure it out. So
Yeah.
beforehand, it really sucks, but after, it's very manageable. And so, yeah, but I was dealing with that anxiety, right? Of like
Right.
all the trauma that I experienced and working through that with the Lord, and like, and really trusting that He's taking care of me, and
Right.
and believing that He equipped me and is strengthening me to go do the thing that He called me to do, which is work
Yep.
and provide for my family. And
Absolutely.
so I had a successful year, not like 6 figures, but like I had a successful year of being able to provide for my family that year. And then moving into, what was it, 2024, I think, I had a crazy year. I hit 6 figures.
Amazing.
And I was still like so unstructured, so unorganized. Like I was so, I can't, you probably would have had a brain aneurysm, like seeing my like process and how I was doing everything. But it was a super cool year. So like encouraging to like see all these clients wanting me as their photographer. And then, but then leading into 2025, I had this crazy year, and then it dried up. And looking into the next year, I was getting like so little bookings. I was like,
Wow.
what is happening?
Yeah.
What's going on? And I was terrified. Like, I'm providing for my family. My wife isn't working. There's those discussions. She used to be a CPA. She's like, do I go back to accounting?
Right.
You know, and I was like, no, I want to provide for you guys. And so after enough moping around that clients aren't coming to me, right? Like, I finally came to the point I was like, I need to do something. And I had always been interested in your course, but it just never felt like, it didn't feel like the right time anytime there's a sign up. And so, but come March of 2025, I had so few weddings booked. And I was like, I got to do this. And even though it's going to make a huge dent in our account, and like knowing that we have so little work in the future, I was like, I need to do something. And God bless my wife. She's so filled with faith. And even in the hospital, I'm giving her props right now. In the hospital, not one single time did she think like anything bad was going to happen. Like she, and it wasn't like no, my husband can't die. Like, what am I going to do without him? It was like, no, she was like,
she's just
like
solid
this the entire time.
Wow.
And like everyone that was around her can attest to it. And then the same thing in this scenario, like she had so much faith, and she's like, no, you need to sign up for Nathan's course. Like, and like whatever. And so I did. And in my mind, I was like doubting myself and everything. I was like, if I can just get one wedding, I can pay off this course.
Totally. Yeah. You're like, what's the,
which is a super valid, like, it's actually a valid thing, but I was saying it in a doubting sense of like, if I can just get like one wedding.
Right.
And
it's a very rational thought. It's very rational to be like,
yeah.
hey, if all this does is just this.
Yeah. And I knew like then I would have the knowledge in the future to build whatever. And so I signed up for it, and I sat at my desk, opened the first module, and I kid you not, it was probably like 3 minutes in, 5 minutes in, and I was like, oh, I'm getting my return on my investment. This is happening. Like,
so cool to hear.
It wasn't like even the production level. It was like what you're communicating so quickly.
Totally.
I was like, oh, if you're already saying this, what is in the rest of this course, right? And so what blew my mind though was the inquiry to booking system.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. I was so excited about it, and I was so embarrassed at myself that like how I was running my business up until that point, you know? And I was like, okay, I need, like, that day going through that module, I'm like, I'm changing everything right now. Like, totally. I cannot do another day how I'm doing it. And so, and then there's other tips that you had about like reaching out to brides, like finding brides that are engaged and whatever. And I was just like on it. I was trying to listen to everything that you were saying.
Would you just say that before you kind of felt like, oh, I didn't have a system, or my system was there, but it was just disorganized?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again.
Well, when you saw these things and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is such a light bulb moment, was it that before you were like, I just didn't have a system and or maybe that you
Yeah.
had a system, but it just like wasn't working or
Yeah.
you weren't sticking to it or you know what I'm saying?
100%. It was, I would say, because I'm not left-brained at all. I'm so right-brained. You know, like I'm a creative, and so like the back end stuff like is not my strong suit.
Totally.
My wife is that accountant. She's the good, yeah. But she's taking care of a kiddo, so like I don't really want to try to like I want to just
Totally.
figure it out on my own. And so yeah, no, I would say for the most part I didn't even really have a system. Like
Hmm.
it took clients in and just like communicated with them however they wanted,
Hmm.
whatever. Just yeah, it was messy, but I made it work for the time being.
Hmm.
I definitely would have dried up if I kept doing that though. And so yeah, the that inquiry to booking system was crazy, and I started implementing that. And I wanted that done so that when brides are coming to me, or if like I reach out to soon to be brides or whatever, that I would have something that actually can give them a good experience.
Totally.
Like I didn't want to skip that. And so when I had that, I started like reaching out to I found brides that are engaged and whatever. And then I also just I marketed myself a little bit more and whatever. And so by this time, like I had so few weddings booked, and this is March, like it's pretty late in the
Yeah.
season, and so I ended up getting it was at least 10 more weddings at over $1,000 more per package compared to the year before,
You mean
and
after
then
you
like
joined the Blueprint?
after I joined the Blueprint,
Wow.
and and then I took on a bunch of families to kind of make up whatever I needed, the rest that I needed.
Yeah.
Um, and then so that was like because that's not that much, and like the amount of weddings that I had ended up being okay for the year, like
Hmm.
considering where I was at to
Totally.
I was stoked, like that was I got, and all those weddings it was because of your course. Like I'm
Hmm.
not saying that to flatter you, like there's multiple times where I was like, this bride would have walked away if
Hmm.
I didn't have this from this course or
Wow.
whatever. And so I'm incredibly thankful. And and so and then now looking into 2026, I'm sitting comfortably for
Hmm.
bookings for the year.
It's amazing.
And I'm
Such
really
a good
looking forward
feeling.
to the influx of like holiday brides, right? Coming in, but like I'm like not nervous for the year. So like
So
I'm
cool.
it's such a cool thing to see like 9 months later. It's not even 9 months later,
Yeah.
but like um a huge shift happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I feel like that's one of the best things to feel as a photographer when you go into that
Yeah.
new year. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times this is the part of the year that can cause so many photographers that anxiety because they're
Yeah.
like, all right, we're about to head into this new year and I have
Mm,
so few bookings
yeah.
and we're about to start it. I've got
Yeah.
nothing. And
Yeah.
then it's like that crunch time of like January,
Mm,
February, March. And then oftentimes the season starts and
yeah.
it's just like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I feel like I have so many things that I want to ask you about
Yeah.
just in
Yeah.
light of all of this.
I'm here for it.
I think my first thing, maybe just more reflective, when I hear your story, first of all, I'm just really blown away and really
Mhm.
humbled by everything that you braved
Yeah.
and walked
Yeah.
through. Like I
Yeah.
honestly cannot imagine.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to me the fact that like, you know, you were married at this time, you had a kid at this time, you
Mhm.
were probably like, were you the sole provider at this time as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And you know, you had kind of like you had this job, and then you were also moving into photography.
Mhm.
How did you navigate just like the coming back into things and almost like telling yourself it's okay that this happened and
Yeah.
I need to let myself breathe and that no pun intended, but literally
Yeah.
not only physically breathe, but also
Yeah.
let yourself breathe mentally so that you can step back into things without feeling this overwhelming pressure of like, I got to keep up. I got to make sure that, you know, how old are you?
I'm 29.
Yeah, it's like I got to be a 29-year-old like young professional and keep moving
Yeah.
and that's always where my mind goes and it's like
Yeah.
how did you let yourself just calm?
It's a great question. And I was very thankful. We got a lot of gifts from a lot of friends and people that we didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
that took care of us for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that gave some breathing room, but I also knew like if I didn't start acting now, like if I'm gonna do photography and I don't start acting now, like I need to start building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't just turn it on and like take like clients are just gonna start flooding in.
Right.
And so there was that tension of like, okay, we have money to take care of us for the time being. If I just want to sit and relax, like try to process everything that
Yep.
happened, but also wrestling with like, okay, that money's gonna dry up. Like I can't just,
Right.
and then I can't just turn on the faucet again. So it was, and then yeah, dude, it was that constant dependence on the Lord and
Mm.
like the community around me. My sister, my mom, my obviously my wife, and other very dear friends, pouring into me all the time, and being incredibly patient with like my anxiety attacks at that time.
Mm.
And it was, um, I wish I could give a more detailed answer. It truly came down to like, am I spending time with the Lord and allowing like and
Mm.
trusting him in this process?
Wow.
Because I came to the point where it's like there's not enough like just sitting around and just resting my body is not going to be the solution to what I need to be able to launch myself into the next season of our lives, which is
Mm.
like me providing again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so um it, attaching myself to the vine, you know.
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And then I would even ask, like, now in your place, it's just crazy to hear your story and then hear you, I'm just looking at you like sitting there and you're in your right mind and you're healthy and all of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And how do you battle even still maybe any sort of attacks from the enemy or anxiety that says, what if this happens again? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, how do you
yeah.
battle that? Because I can imagine that would try to attack you at times.
So I mentioned earlier that I had never dealt with anxiety prior, and so I had never known what it feels like to physically feel anxiety,
Hmm.
and so that like tension in your chest, which felt very similar to how I felt the day I went to the hospital. So like
Oh, it's like this
my
like sick
my
cycle of like, am I anxious or am I anxious
yes.
about the
Am
thing?
I anxious or
About
am I dying? Like it was
Jeez.
truly it was like so my wife would say and I would probably say the same is like after the hospital was harder than the hospital. Um because of just wrestling with that trauma, right? And I have like all these doctors saying like you should not be alive, but you're doing incredibly well and we don't know how. And like I have my lung doctor who's saying like, yep, you don't need to come back to me, like you're good to go, whatever. And I'm just like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, you know? I'm,
Right.
right. And so like there was that wrestle. Um and what was your original question? I want to be able to hit on it.
I mean, you answered it, but I guess my original question was like, how did you battle that
Yeah,
anxiety, and how do you still battle that
yeah,
anxiety if it
and
ever
so okay,
comes?
yeah, that's what I was going to. So, it really did get to a point where I was able to identify um, when it was anxiety, and it always has
Yeah.
been because my body's been okay, right? And so, but like recognizing what's happening to me or like the things happening around me, and being like, oh yeah, this is making me feel anxious, right?
Hmm.
Or early on after the hospital, like I couldn't even cook an egg in the kitchen with people in the kitchen. Like I was so overwhelmed. There was so much rewiring I had to do in my brain to like increase my capacity, and so like there's and that capacity just grew, right?
Hmm.
And so but there was something the other day where I had to drive to something a little bit more overwhelming, and I felt that, and I hadn't felt that in like probably 6 months. But I felt it, and I was like, oh, that's anxiety. Like, I'm not dying, right? And so, and remembering like not God's truth, but like the truth that the doctors are telling me is like, you're fine, like you're good. And like I go to my rheumatologist every 2 times a year, and he's like, he just always says like, I don't know how you're doing this well, but I'm very glad. And so, so just recognizing that's an anxious episode, and being like, and giving myself grace for that, right? Like,
Right.
I used to feel embarrassed that I was anxious because I had never experienced that prior. And so, but like starting to really give myself grace, and like I throw on worship music, or I like just immediately pray, and I'm just like, Lord, like I want to walk with you in this, and like I want to trust you, and I understand that you probably won't take this away right now. Like, you're not just gonna like release the pressure off my chest, but you're allowing me to, like, you're giving me the strength to trust you in this moment and be able to walk through it despite how I'm feeling. And that's been like way more powerful than just like I'm thankful for the anxiety experience that I've had. Because it's allowed me to rely on him so much more.
Yeah. And I think it all builds your testimony so much stronger. I mean, you've got an incredible testimony, dude. And I think it's just a huge part of like what the Lord uses to further his kingdom and to further your story getting out to people.
Yeah, for sure.
I also am just curious when you talk about okay, so you had a near death experience. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, do you look at that? The best way I can put this is when you look at your work now, and even just the way you spend your time, the way you interact with people, the way you run your business, how would you say you've just changed in the way you function and the way you spend your time doing things, or again, even the way you run your business? Like, how has that all changed since you've had an experience like that?
Everything matters. I know where I'm going if I die. You know, like my wife knows that. Like we're honestly really at peace, like with the concept of death. But like in the same breath, everything matters. I've had a relative. My brother passed away, right? Like, capturing family members is incredibly important to me, right? Because I'm like, you don't know what's going to happen to your family, like, and I hate like talking morbid like that, but it's like, man, capture those memories with your family or whoever's special to you, right? Because like some of my favorite pictures of my wedding day are of my brother in it, you know, not me and my wife, like he's in there. And so that's really special to me. And like, and so focusing on the wedding day from the perspective of like capturing everything, not from a like an obsessive standpoint or whatever, but like capturing like those moments that you're like, when something hard is happening in your life, you can go back to that and be like, dang, like, yeah, like that was a good moment, right?
Totally.
And let it be an encouragement to you. And so I would say that's a huge part of how that has impacted me. Obviously, I have other approaches to the wedding day, but like how my story impacts how I shoot. That's definitely one.
I am certain that it does. I just feel like, do you put any part of this, like, let's say on your website or any part of your story on that?
Yeah. I'm literally like, we're launching a new website like this week.
So cool.
Maybe next week. And I'm rebranding and everything. Like, there's like a lot of exciting stuff happening. And yes, I'm sharing my story on my About Me. And you know what? I was honestly really scared to do that, because I didn't want clients thinking I'm going to drop dead before the ceremony,
right,
or before their wedding. Like, and so, but I was like, no, like, my body's okay. Like, I'm going to be at their wedding, like, Lord willing. But, and I want the clients that are going to embrace my story, not be scared of it. And so I had a turning point, and I was like, yep, I'm throwing that in there. And I'm really happy with how I communicated it too.
I'm
So
sure it's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
I just love that because I think people love to hear your story. And I
yeah,
think, yes, you probably have that voice in your head that's like, oh, this is weakness. I can't show this
yeah,
weakness.
yeah,
But I think that can be your
yeah,
greatest
yeah,
strength to show people that you
yeah.
are human and that you do. Like, I would think to myself, okay, this photographer cares. Like,
Hmm.
this photographer has a reason
Yes,
that
yes,
he's doing this and that
yes,
he's doing this with his time. Like,
yeah,
he's seen the most clear perspective on his life
yeah,
that kind of anybody gets, which is life in light of death.
yeah,
And yet he still is choosing to do this occupation
yeah,
and he's still choosing to book clients. And to me
yeah,
that just rings true that you know
yeah,
what you know yourself and you know what you want to do.
yes,
Um
yeah,
I love this, Eric. Is
mm,
there anything else, just kind of as we like wind the episode down,
yeah,
that we haven't talked about, whether it's like some sort of advice you'd give
yeah,
or any sort of like parting remarks you'd give to anybody going through something, whatever it is that
yeah.
you want to share with people today?
Oh man. Do we got all day? I'm joking. Um, I will say God is real. You know,
Mm,
like he's and my story is like it like irrefutable proof of that.
yeah.
Like
How cool.
like doctors that don't even aren't even Christian, they're like only God. Like they
Yeah.
had like I don't know what if they like actually came to the Lord after, but like they were saying like there has to be some kind of higher power that like made this
Hmm.
happen, right? And so it was God is real. And it has absolutely transformed. The more I allow God into my business, the more fruit I see from it,
Yeah.
right? And like, not even just talking about him, but like involving him in the process of my business.
Absolutely.
Even like, dude, um, I I had to write copy for my website, obviously,
Yeah.
and that's like I love writing, but like when it comes to like selling myself or like just it's that's not a strong suit of mine,
Totally.
and I was anxious, like I had a lot on my plate. I had to finish galleries, I had to whatever, and I was like, dude, like I looked at this whole like guide that I had to finish out from the designer, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I just kind of had a breaking point, like a whatever, and um, I was asking the Lord to like speak to me and like Lord help me with this, right?
Totally.
Um and I was really relying on Him. Silence that night, the night I was approaching Him about it, and then that night I had a dream that I totally forgot about until I got to my desk the next day, and I was prompted to go to Nehemiah 1. And I like I'd never studied Nehemiah. I've
You're
definitely
like
read it.
Nehemiah? What?
Yeah, I'm like, dude, like that, but that's like the last book that's like on my mind, and so I certainly don't know what's in chapter 1, and so I opened it and I have it written right next to me. It says, "Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your
Hmm.
servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man."
Hmm.
And I read that, I was like, I stopped in my tracks, and like,
You're like, I'm
and
just gonna write that on my mirror and recite it
it's on a
every
whiteboard
morning.
right next to me. I was
I
like,
love that.
this, and throughout this whole like branding process and whatever, I'm like praying this every time I get to my computer, because I'm like, Lord, I want to do this with you, like, and that day after like seeing that passage, I breezed, and like I was writing in ways that I never thought I could write, like,
Wow.
and obviously we'll need to get adjusted and stuff, but like I was like, holy cow, like came through. And so like allowing God into my business has made me all the more creative, all the
Hmm.
more like being able to do my job with excellence, and doing it where I'm not drained. Like I feel like when I allow him in it, I'm not drained. And then when
Hmm.
I remove him from it, like that's when I'm like, bro, I don't want to do this right now. And so yeah, that's a
So
huge
cool, dude.
piece of advice for me.
I absolutely love it. The whole idea of reading scripture almost as like an affirmation. Like, I don't even know what affirmation is, but like reading scripture is just such like, if we actually believe that it is the sword of the Spirit and that it has power, we need to treat it as such. And I do believe it does have that power in our lives. And I do believe that words like that they can just completely change the course of our lives and change our renew our minds in many ways. And I think that can unlock that, like that divine inspiration sometimes too, like that. It sounds like you kind of had. But I absolutely love that. Eric, could you tell us where we can find you on social media, and maybe even like what your new website's going to be, so we can connect with you there?
So my website name will stay the same as it has been, but so erichillestadphoto.com.
Okay.
My last name's hard to spell, so just look at my name right at the bottom of my whatever.
We'll link it in the show notes though.
And then also my Instagram is eric.hillestad.photo. And so those are my two avenues that you can find me. And I would love to connect with you if you have any questions. Honestly, I'm an open book. So like if you guys are struggling with something like, and you just want an ear, or you actually want to be able to hear my story for any advice or whatever, I'm happy to help. Because like I going back to being scared to share my story with my business, I've never been scared to share my story, but until it came to sharing it with my business. And so like, I love sharing my story because like God is so good. Right. But like, I was fearful that people would think I'd dropped it.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Yeah. So
Eric, dude, this has just been so amazing. I am truly like so honored and humbled to have you be able to share this on the podcast. And I really think like, dude, I'm shook. I'm really shook at this story. This is just wild to me. I knew we were in for it, but I didn't know how much. I honestly have been so blessed to hear this. So thank you so much for being with us today and coming out and chatting about it. I really appreciate it.